what did he warn us? America will never be destroyed from the outside. Boy, was he right. Unless you take into consideration, like Congressman Mack and I were talking about just a second ago, how China might be winning the war against us economically right now. But we're talking about a foreign enemy coming into America and conquering America. It's not going to happen. And Lincoln knew that. But he also knew we were in big trouble. And that if it got any worse than it was back in those days, that we would be destroyed from within. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. And we are. Do you need any more proof than the last 3 weeks watching Washington, D.C.? But there's lots more. There's lots more. And if we are to take this seriously, then where do we have to be concerned? Here. The problem is America. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's in my books. It's on my website. I don't like saying this, but if you came here to have somebody blow smoke up your backside, then you came to the wrong meeting, because I'm going to tell you the truth. And one of the bottom lines is, the greatest threat to our God-given constitutional American republic is our own federal government. And we better recognize this is what's happening. We are destroying ourselves. Why? Because we are destroying our foundation. And what is the American foundation? It's the Constitution. And I never built anything in my life. I am not an architect, and I never worked construction. But I know this. If you destroy the foundation, the rest of the building will fall. It will not survive. And you want to talk about the Civil War? Let's talk about the Civil War. This is the most crucial time in American history since the Civil War. And we are deciding right now, by either our inaction or our complacency or our apathy, we are deciding right now whether or not we're going to continue as the constitutional republic as intended by our framers and founders, or are we going to succumb to the political correctness pressure to become another socialistic country, socialistic government? Which one are we going to do? We are making that decision partly tonight, but most of it will depend on what we do after we leave here tonight. And we better get busy, because we've got a lot of work to do. And, you know, a lot of people have asked me, this is about the 10th time I've come to one part of California or another to give a speech. People always ask me all across the country, "You've been to California? You give your freedom speech in California?" Yes, there's a lot of great people in California. A lot of people who still believe in America and our Constitution. Many of you have said, though, we're from California. What can we do for freedom? And I said, move to Nevada or Arizona or Utah. That's a little bit of a joke, you know, even though some of you have already told me you are. But I say let's fight it out here. Because you know what? You don't need to worry about Washington, D.C. Sorry, Congressman. But the answer and the solution is not in Washington. The solution is right here in your county. We take back America, county by county. Okay, and James Madison, the father of our Constitution, said it pretty much a different way that Lincoln said it. But he still said it nevertheless. There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments from those in power than by any sudden usurpation, foreign usurpation, or foreign attack. The threat is here. And some of us think that we have some sort of obligation to go along with that. especially if they're still offering us money. Boy, if we could just get more of those federal grants, huh? You know? And of course, there's no strings attached to that. I can honestly say that the 8 years I was sheriff, I threw away every offer for a federal grant. Threw away. This quote from Thomas Jefferson. And if you've ever looked up the history of Thomas Jefferson, he was smarter at age 5 than most of us in this room were after we graduated from college. I'm serious. This man was IQ out of the world, you know. Makes Bill Gates look like a dummy. Okay? This man, and he called it again. Look at this. My reading of history. What does that tell us? That maybe we should be studying history also. Okay, and what did Franklin say about that? If you don't, you're doomed to. Yeah. My reading of history convinces me that most bad government results from too much government. And so right now we're seeing, okay, from what we saw from Lincoln, what we saw from Madison, what we're hearing from Jefferson, then what's the solution? Man, oh man, we have got to get government back where it belongs. The Constitution was actually designed to do that. Now all we have to do is enforce the Constitution. Solution while we're on this first part, and I'm going to end it basically right here. Madison says we can safely rely on the disposition of state legislatures. State legislatures. And all their political subdivisions to erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority.
Not
However,
California.
It does not, that responsibility does not just belong to the state legislature. It belongs to the political subdivisions of the state. Counties, cities, school boards. Anytime you have a school board member tell you, oh, I wish we could help you. I wish we could work with you, but we have all these federal mandates. Then you want to tell that person, you have a couple of days to repent of your stupidity. Then we're going to find somebody else that we're actually that we vote for that will do your job. Okay. Now we're going to get right back into this. Evidence, remember this is evidence, and we're going to go over a little bit of what it was that brought me here to you today. It started way back when I started as a cop. And Fran talked to you about my undercover assignment. That had a lot to do with it. Because after I finished my undercover assignment, I wanted to know why I was taken away from my family and my 3 children for almost a year. Couldn't be seen with them in public. Couldn't go to my kids' games or school things or whatever, nothing. My wife became a single mother and couldn't go to church with them. Couldn't be seen in public with any of them. Had to sneak home late at night just to be with my family and my wife a little bit. And why did I risk my life so that we could have people not smoke marijuana anymore? And so I'm looking at this and I'm going, and while I was undercover, I did this social economic analysis of the benefits of smoking marijuana instead of drinking yourself to death. And I saw people who were drunk and becoming very dangerous, and I saw all these people smoking pot, and they were mellow and cool. Which one would you rather be on? So I started studying, and that studying of the drug war just made me convinced that what I'm dedicating my career and life to was a farce. And there had to be a better answer and solution. And one thing I did come up with, and that is this. We will never arrest away the drug problem. Never. So but there was a lot of other stuff going on. And when I'm studying, and I wanted to know why we need police, why we have police, why am I a cop? And why are we doing all this? And I even asked, why do we write all these tickets? What is that for? Because I didn't feel it was really an honest effort from police. It was, I'm sorry, but I felt like a revenue agent writing all those tickets. And one day, I wrote this lady a ticket, or I was about to write this lady a ticket, and I realized that her running the stop sign made her run the stop sign. She ran the stop sign, yes. But I was the one in the wrong. And she changed my life that day, this lady did, and she never said a word to me. And from that moment on, I said, I'm going to know why I'm here and why we have government. And I started studying. And I started studying, and I looked at everything I possibly could, and I ran smack in the face of the oath of office. And I couldn't believe it. I was so ashamed that I took an oath, signed my oath, didn't even remember doing that, but I signed an oath, and I promised, I gave my solemn promise and word that I would uphold, defend, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state. And I almost quit my job over it because I said, there's no way I'm going to keep a job that forces me to be a liar and a hypocrite. And then I just decided, well, you don't have to quit your job. Just quit being a liar and a hypocrite. So I started studying the Constitution, and I fell in love with it. And there was a seminar sponsored by the state of Utah, Peace Officer Standards and Training Board. And it was certified training. And the instructor's name, I hope some of you have heard of him before, the instructor's name was Dr. W. Cleon Skousen. And amazing guy. He used to be the chief of police in Salt Lake City. And, is this mic still working? Are we still okay? Yeah, I think this one. And he used to work in the FBI with my father. And so I went to this training seminar, and we didn't study one thing about officer safety or case law with the Miranda decision or any of those other things. And this class called The Making of America. And I was converted, and my life was changed again. And I took another oath while I was there. I will just wake him up. I took another oath, sitting there in that class with 240 big tough cops from across the state of Utah. And I promised myself that I would never be on the wrong side again. I continued on with my police career. I dedicated myself to the job and to the oath of office and to the Constitution. And I found out that doing all of that together works out just fine. And then 6 years later, I moved to Arizona and I ran for sheriff. And then you got to remember, I got all my police training in Utah. I hadn't even lived in Arizona for 12 years. I'd never been a cop or in any public service at all in Arizona or my hometown, ever. And I walked back into town and said, make me your head law enforcement officer. And I worked my tail off, and we ran a good campaign, and I won. And 4 years later, I was reelected. And then in 1993, I was watching TV, and something happened crazy. I watched Bill Clinton sign the Brady Bill into law. And he used 13 pens, he was left-handed, and he said something that was so Clinton-esque that I've never forgotten it. And I didn't go, well, I'm going to sue him. That never crossed my mind, because they never told the truth about the Brady Bill. Can you imagine that, Congressman? People in Washington, D.C. not telling the truth about a bill? So, he said, the Brady Bill is going to make the streets of America so safe that even our nation's police officers won't need to carry guns anymore. Is that Clinton or what? Is that, does that sound like him? Yeah. I can't do his, I can't mimic him very good, but anyway, that's probably a good thing. And so, my wife and I are laughing at that, and I was laughing. But then, on January 21st, 1994, we're having a Sheriff's Association meeting in Phoenix. And there's 3 strangers in the room. 3. It takes 3 of them. 3 agents of the BATF are at our sheriff's meeting. And they hand us a document, and they tell us, this document details your marching orders as to what you have to do to comply with the Brady Bill. And you have to do all these background checks, and you have to keep all these records, and you have to pay for it all. There's no money attached this time. And you have to use your personnel in your office, and you just have to do this. And we're going, why do we have to do this? Because Congress passed the law. Oh. So now we work for you because Congress passed the law. When are you going to pay our salaries? You see, this was a big problem. You know what? Congress could have passed 500 laws that says the sheriffs have to work for them. Does that make it true? No. It's not worth the paper it's written on.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's a total lie. And so I said it's a lie. All the other sheriffs were cussing this law like you would not believe. And guess what else they told us? Now, these BATF agents said, yes, you guys have to do this work. You have to pay for it yourself. And I'm sure this isn't going to happen. You know how we're all friends. And you can trust Janet Reed. But there's this little provision in the Brady Bill that says, and I'm going to show you the evidence of this. I'm not coming here to spout out a bunch of stuff that's, Sheriff Mack stuff. I'm going to show you the evidence. What you do with it is up to you. But I'm going to show you the evidence. I'm going to show you the threat of arrest. They threatened to arrest us if we failed to comply. Oh, but we're sure they're not going to do it. You don't think that they're going to do that. We're sure they're not. And at the end of the day, you've never seen so many mad sheriffs in your life. And at the end of the day, every single one of them acquiesced. There's nothing we can do about it. You know what they said over and over? You can't fight City Hall. Who wants you to believe that?
City Hall.
City Hall, of course. We hope you farmers with pitchforks. I'll just do what you're told. You're a bunch of peasants. And so, after all the sheriffs told me they were going to go along, not that they wanted to, but they were going to go along, I said, I'm not going to. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was the youngest sheriff in the state at the time, and I didn't know. You think right there, oh, well, I'm going to sue the Clinton administration. I'm going to take them all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'm going to win. I wasn't that naive. I was naive, but I wasn't that naive. Suing the federal government never even crossed my mind. But what was I going to do? And so I had a 3-hour drive from Phoenix to southeast Arizona, where I was sheriff in Graham County. And I was brooding and brooding and brooding. And by the time I ended up in my driveway, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm going to sue my own government. I'm going to sue the Clinton administration. Oh, goody. Nothing ever happens to anybody who crosses the Clintons. But then after I was scared to death at that thought, I thought, oh good, I can relax. Because there's no way my wife's going to let me do this. Of course, she's waiting. I call her the pretty little blonde girl. She's waiting in the house because I haven't been home for a day and a half. And she's coming up to give me a hug, and I said, I'm going to sue the Clinton administration. I'm going to stop this Brady Bill thing, and I hope you support me all the way. How about it? And of course, and I did. I blurted it out. I was so preoccupied. I didn't even give her a hug. I'm blurting this out. And then after we sit down and we talk about it, she still doesn't get any of it. And she goes, I don't understand any of this, what you're talking about. And I'm sure that you've got your own ideas about it. But I understand you. And she goes, besides, we weren't really looking for a job when we landed this one. And then she said something really amazing, if not miraculous. she said, maybe now we know why you were meant to be sheriff. I said, wow, okay. I'm going to take that as a yes. And she just kind of shrugged. But let me tell you, ladies especially, my wife made the decision to do this. If she had told me not to, I wouldn't have. She could have very easily talked me out of this, and I wouldn't have done it. All I wanted was to be sheriff. It was my dream job. And I told her this is going to cost us everything, including the job. And I ended up doing that. You know. But there's lots of other jobs, and she was right. We weren't really looking for that job when we got it. And so there's lots of other jobs. So I called a lawyer down on Main Street the next day and find out that you have to be certified to go to federal courts, and I didn't know any of this. And he was just filling my head full of all sorts of stuff. I said, look, I just want you to file the case. It's not going to go anywhere. Just file it, okay? He goes, you got 20 grand? And I said, no. And he goes, Sheriff, just go back to work and let this go and stop playing your little Don Quixote games. And I said, oh, well, I said, I'm not going to do that. So then my undersheriff comes in the room and I said, hey, Mike, I told him what I wanted to do, and he thought I was nuts also. And I said, you're a life member of the NRA. I said, I'm not. I said, do they have like a toll-free number you can call and get advice? I called the NRA and landed in the office of Richard Gardner. He's a lawyer for the NRA. I told him who I was, what I wanted to do, and the next line changed my life. He said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. I told Mr. Gardner that I wanted my own lawyer. He said, fine, we'll work with your lawyer. And I said, can you recommend one out in Arizona that knows and understands the Second Amendment? He said, sure. Dave Hardy in Tucson. I called Hardy, and Hardy, I hired him as my lawyer, and on February 28th, 1994, the very day the Brady Bill took effect, my lawyers filed in federal district court in Tucson, Arizona, in the courtroom of one Judge John M. Roll. You'll remember that Judge Roll was murdered at the assassination attempt of Congresswoman Giffords on January 8th. Another man who changed my life. And in the book, my most recent book, The Magic of Gun Control. And don't you guys get the title? Some people don't get the title. It's sarcastic. It's a satire. Okay? At least the title is. Okay? Because if gun control provided any benefit, if it worked to create peace, reduce crime, make us safer, secure liberty, it would be magic! Because that's never happened before in world history. And your polymagicians, have you ever heard that word before? Your polymagicians in Washington, D.C. want you to believe that they're magic and that they're politician magicians. Polymagicians. I made up that word. Polymagician. Remember, when you use the word polymagician, you have to give me credit. Polymagicians in Washington want you to believe that somehow gun control will make you safer because this is America and it'll work here. And it's the same propaganda scheme that all the dictators, especially in the 20th century, used to create genocides and holocausts and governmental murders. And the greatest criminals throughout history have always come from government. And that's what the book talks about. It even talks about a few things like Fast and Furious and the truth about that and some others. And at the end, of course, it compares America to the Titanic. Now, some of your polymagicians want you to believe that you should stay on the ship. And I'm telling you, you probably ought to think about getting off of there. Especially in some of those boats, the lifeboats that only have 12 or 13 people in it. You better jump on one of those real quick, because we're in trouble. And as I said, this is the most crucial time in American history since the Civil War. And it's going to be up to us. Now, there's been some people that have lied about me. And I'll even tell you one of the name of the group. Southern Poverty Law Center has lied about me. And I actually called them on it and actually filed suit against them, and they issued a retraction. But guess which one? Guess which issue gets passed around all over the place? The one with the retraction or the one with the lie? The one with the lie. Let me tell you plain and simply here. I have never and I will never advocate violence. We can still take America back in a peaceful manner, but we're going to have some local officials that get busy on that. Real quickly, while I picked up these books, I want you to know that that book has a chapter dedicated to Judge Lowell. It's worth getting just for that. He was an absolute amazing man. And we're going to go over some of the stuff he did and said. This book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, came out 4.5 years ago. It's done about 100,000 copies. And it's a tool. Did I write this for your sheriff? No. I wrote it for you. You're his boss. You have to know what he's supposed to know. Okay? We have sent this to all the sheriffs. But if you don't know it, it's going to be really a hard time for you to have a good, solid relationship with your sheriff. And I know that many of you are not just from Nevada County. Every one of you must maintain and acquire a relationship with your sheriff and work with him in taking back America one county at a time. This little booklet is the most powerful tool I have over my table. This is a highlighted version of the Supreme Court decision in my case. Anytime, anybody, a county commissioner, or anybody else in the state, or your congressman, whoever, said, oh, the federal government trumps the states and everything. Just hand them that and let them read it. It takes about 15 minutes to read this, maybe less. And you can read what the United States Supreme Court said in the only time sheriffs sued the federal government and won a case, a monumental case for state sovereignty. And there's so much amazing stuff in here, and this is part of the evidence that we're going to go over here in just a minute. Okay? But you want to get dozens of these, and you want to pass them out. Okay? You want to have, somebody tells you the federal government trumps, just read that, please. Say, the federal government can tell you what to do? Read that, please. No, they can't. Oh, if you let them tell you, yeah. If you acquiesce, if you don't understand these principles we just read, erecting the barriers. And I formed a group called the CSPOA, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And we've had 3 national conventions. And we have some of our DVD sets over at the table too. And you can see for yourself that what we've been doing is working. This isn't pie in the sky, folks. This isn't some campaign. This isn't you wait till the next election. This is something we can do now, today, tomorrow, with each other. Now, working with local officials to erect the barriers, as Madison was talking about, against the encroachments of the national authority. They do not own your land. They do not own your health care. They do not own your education. They do not own the water. We do. And I can tell you right now, you're going to see it for yourself as we go through this. And I have some highlighted DVD over there also. And then my first book, just an amazing book. I wrote this specifically because of the lawsuit that I filed against the federal government. And it says, from my cold, dead fingers, why America needs guns. And the simple answer to that is, because we need liberty. You take my gun, you take my freedom.
Amen.
You take my gun, then I'm not an American anymore. I'm a subject.
Yep.
I must submit. And why is it that we are, and especially me and the book, both these books, The Magic of Gun Control and this one, are so adamantly against background checks? Well, you should want everybody to get a background check, huh? Well, if I can volunteer, I might. But once you allow government to say this to you, you cannot exercise your Second Amendment rights until you submit and subject yourself to what I say is the background check adequate for you. And if you don't submit, then you don't get your Second Amendment rights. That, my friends, in law enforcement jargon, is a Bravo Sierra. Okay? Stands for BS. Okay? Because they don't. They don't have that authority, they can't tell me. And what is it about the Second Amendment that we don't get? I studied the Second Amendment. I didn't know that what my chief of police, when he said only military and police officers should have guns, I didn't know anything. I thought maybe he was right. I wasn't a constitutional nut back then. I became a constitutional nut because I read the Constitution and I read what the Founding Fathers said about it, and then I became one because it was all about freedom and liberty. And I love that part. I love America. That's what sets us apart from everybody else. The government doesn't tell we the people tell the government. Just so there's no mistake, this book makes sure you and your politicians understand that in America, gun control is against the law. You understand that? You might hate guns. You might think that the world would be better off if we had no guns. You might have a cousin or relative that was killed by a gun. Well, it wasn't the gun. But a gun was used in the commission of some crime against one of your loved ones. So you want to get rid of guns. So no, that won't ever happen to anybody else again. Whatever the reason is, gun control is still against the law in America. It's against the law here. You don't get to have your personal opinion about it. The founders are the only ones whose opinion matter on that subject. They created it. Find out why they developed the Second Amendment, and then you can formulate your opinion about that. You can disagree with them all you want. You can. But you're wrong, they were right, and they made the law, and it's the supreme law of the land, and all public officials promised in God's name to support that and defend that. Whether you like it or not.